Loops are an incredibly powerful tool when learning how to program. So let's talk about one that you might use the most often, the for loop. The for loop starts with a header. It starts with the word for, and then you're going to insert in a series of evaluations so that the for loop knows exactly how many times to run. First, you're going to start with the for loop variable initialization. It's an int, and we typically call it I, which historically stands for iterator, also because it's just a short name. And traditionally, we start counting at 0. Computers generally start counting at 0, and you'll see that we do this a lot in our for loops because it makes it easier to interact with other elements. But it actually doesn't matter what value you start I at. Then we do the test. This test should evaluate to true until we want the test to stop, when it'll switch to evaluating to false. So in this case, let's say we're going to make a loop that counts from 0 up through 10. So we want the loop to run while I is less than or equal to the value of 10. Then finally we finish with the update, and this is what we're going to do to update the I variable, moving it from its initialization to the eventual false evaluation of the test. In this case, we're just going to add 1 every time. And remember, that's the shortcut for adding 1 into a variable. So I++ just means add 1 every time this loops. Then we open a set of curly braces, and anything we put between those curly braces is going to be repeated while the loop runs. So let's say we're just going to print out whatever the current value of I is. This way, you'll get a good idea of seeing how I changes. So let's build this project. There we go. And then we're going to run it. And there you can see, I starts at 0, and it counts all the way up until 10. But then what happens here is that I comes back, gets updated to 11. As soon as I is 11, it is no longer less than or equal to 10, and so the loop stops. Like I said before, this loop will run exactly how many times you tell it to, and you can change each of these 3 things based on what you need. For example, we could have the loop go the other direction. So let's say we started I at 10, then we want it to count down from 10 to 0, so we want to go while I is greater than or equal to 0, and then we're going to subtract 1 from I each time. Then if we rebuild and run this, you can see that I starts at 10 and counts its way down. You can also move by things other than 1 with the update. So we could say I maybe minus equals 2, and then we're going to have far fewer iterations. Because as you can see, I gets to our end value of 0 much more quickly. Play around with each of the different fields within the for loop so you get a good idea. And keep in mind that not only does I function as a way for the for loop to count how many times it's going to run, but sometimes it can come in handy, just like we're doing here where we're actually printing out I to the console. So always keep in mind that you have I as a resource for you, but as soon as it hits the ending closing curly brace of that for loop, I goes away because it's a local variable and its scope only exists within the for loop.